President Bola Tinubu says poverty is not a shameful thing, but it is unacceptable in Nigeria under his leadership. Of course, we know that, but what specific measures is he planning to implement to address and reduce poverty during his administration? Of course, we know that right now Nigeria is in a state of economic inflation right now, and of course, a lot of promises have been made. Not that they are not doing. We have actually heard the words, but a lot is not been implemented yet. So, what do you think is going to do differently, looking at the state that we have right now?
Well, I think the president will be the one best suited to answer that question. At best, I'm going to just guess. If I read the president's body language very well, I think the signals are still, as yet, quite conflicting as to what exactly the president needs to do to tackle, or what the president intends to do to tackle poverty. It seems that the president is following his predecessor, is following the footsteps of his predecessor with this idea of, conditional cash transfer. It seems to me that that move is something like a stopgap. It doesn't address the issue as substantially or as frontally as it ought to. I mean, giving money to people will not take them out of poverty. At best, it's going to provide temporary relief, but ultimately, what happens next? You have to put in place, institutional mechanisms that will take care of poverty. If you need to subsidize certain things, then you have to identify those things and then, ensure that those things are things that have a bearing on this. Take, for example, something like education. Take, for example, something like transportation. We live in a situation now where, because of the deregulation of petroleum prices have skyrocketed, and, that has also trickled down to public transportation. We do not have a mass transit scheme in place. So what is happening is that you find that the vast majority of Nigerian households spend a substantial portion of their income on transportation. What can the government do to tackle transportation? Can you sort of, increase the transportation component of workers' salaries if you don't want to do a comprehensive wage increase? Can you also procure buses and then put them there on the road? And so these buses are for civil servants to convey them from point A to point B at a subsidized rate. I mean, that seems to me like something that will have a more beneficial effect on fighting poverty, rather than simply saying, oh, you're going to give 8,000, was it, to 12 million households. For how long are you going to do that? Local wisdom says that if you want a man to be independent, you teach him to fish. You don't give him fish. What the government is doing appears, in my own estimation, to giving people fish and not teaching them how to fish. So something like that. Or you can even say, oh, we need to, now that we are no longer subsidizing petrol, what we make out of subsidy, we could plow it into the refineries and ensure that the refineries begin to produce, even if it's for local consumption alone. That is going to cut down the price of petrol for the end users, because part of the problem we have with petrol prices is the exchange rate and the fact that almost every transaction in that sector is denominated in dollars. And of course, you know what happens with the outrageous exchange rate that is in operation now. So it seems to me, all told, that we don't know precisely what this government has in plan for Nigerians with regard to fighting corruption. And even when you try to look closely, you see mixed signs. You don't see very clearly what the government has in store for Nigerians.
Now, talking about following footsteps, I mean, someone said that they are saying that the former administration left a lot of liability for them. It means that they have to tackle that one before they will be able to implement all of these promises that they have given. And one will ask, do you think, how does Tinubu plan, how is our president planning to address the root cause of poverty rather than just its symptoms, like you rightly mentioned?
Well, like I said earlier, I can't second guess the president, but I don't know exactly. I'll really base whatever I'm going to say on his public pronouncements. You alluded to the fact a while ago that he said he inherited a lot of liabilities from his predecessors, but he's been the one too who has also said that, look, Nigerians shouldn't pity him. So if he's making excuses now, I think it's rather too early in the day. He knew that Nigeria was seriously enmeshed in debt at the time he aspired to be president, so that shouldn't be an excuse. Presidents are elected to solve problems, and as a matter of fact, I mean, it'll be it would be untruthful for the president to claim that he only inherited liabilities. He did inherit some assets. I mean, the fact that we even have the Nigerian presidency at your disposal is some sort of asset in a way. It's an opportunity for you to also, task your creativity and see what solutions you could come up with. But again, there's also this dissonance between his pronouncements and his actions. If you're saying you inherited a lot of liabilities, one should see that in also the way you carry yourself. A situation where the president, approaches the National Assembly to ask for permission to spend 5 billion naira to get a presidential yacht, or a situation where you're approving about 120 million naira for each member of the National Assembly to get SUVs to carry out oversight functions. It doesn't seem to me to connect very well with a government that claims to have inherited a lot of liabilities. I mean, if as a household, if your income depreciates, what you do is that you also adjust your consumption level to match up that level. You become more prudent. Luxuries that you used to indulge before. I mean, if you could, to put it in a very stark manner, I mean, if you could empty a tin of milk in a cup of coffee, and when the income is no longer there, you have it. So for a cup of coffee, you could have half a tin of milk. That kind of thing. But we are not seeing that adjustments. We are not seeing that prudence in the management of state resources. We are still seeing state government officials at the highest level wanting to live, a life of flamboyance at a time when, even by their own admission, Nigeria is in a bad place economically.